They say rock bottom changes people. But for some, rock bottom is where greatness is born. This is the story of a boy named Eli, a boy who had nothing but a dream so fragile it could have shattered 1,000 times. Yet somehow it didn't. A boy who slept beneath broken streetlights and still dared to imagine skyscrapers with his name on them. He was only 13 when the world forgot about him. No family, no home, no hand to hold when the nights grew cold. His mother, gone too soon. His father, lost addiction. And the system? It never came looking. Eli became a ghost in the city, invisible to the people who walked past him every day. He slept behind dumpsters, under bridges, sometimes on the steps of closed churches. Every morning, he'd wake to the sound of city buses and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery nearby, a smell that felt both like comfort and torture. He used to whisper to himself, "Someday, I'll build something that matters. Someday, I'll be seen." But the truth? He didn't even know if he'd survive another winter. Then one rainy afternoon, fate decided to give him a gift, not wrapped in gold, not handed by anyone, but thrown away in a pile of trash. A broken laptop. Its screen cracked like a spiderweb, keys missing, battery nearly dead. But to Eli it was a treasure. He wiped the dirt off with his sleeve and carried it as if it were a newborn child. He found an outlet behind a public library, begged the guard to let him charge it, and for hours, he just stared at that glowing screen, a window to a world he'd never known existed. Inside that library, surrounded by the smell of old books and dust, Eli began to teach himself everything: coding, business, design, marketing. He had no teacher, only curiosity, no mentor, only hunger, no one to push him, only the echo of his own voice saying, "Keep going." He watched every free tutorial he could find. He learned how websites worked, how apps were built, how brands made money online. And with every line of code, every sketch, every sleepless night, he began to build a vision of his future. Months passed. People would see him sitting on the library steps, typing on that broken laptop, and they'd laugh. "Look at that kid," they'd say. "He thinks he's going to be a businessman with no shoes." But Eli didn't hear them anymore. He was too focused on what he was becoming. At 16, he started designing small logos for street vendors. He'd sit on a milk crate with his laptop balanced on his knees, borrowing Wi-Fi from a cafe nearby. A few dollars here, a few there, enough to buy food, sometimes enough to save for a week. It wasn't easy. He failed many times. Clients ghosted him. Laptops crashed. Files got lost. But every failure became another lesson carved into his bones. One night, a cold, sleepless night, Eli sat outside a 24-hour diner. The lights flickered. His hands trembled from exhaustion. But on his screen was something different this time, something bigger, an idea for an app. He called it StreetLink, a simple platform that could help small street vendors sell their product online and accept payments easily. It was his way of giving back to the people who, like him, were trying to survive. As he coded, a man walked out of the diner, mid-40s, suit, briefcase. He stopped, looked down. "What are you doing out here, kid?" he asked. Eli hesitated, then turned the laptop toward him. The man stared for a moment, silent, eyes narrowing as he read the app's concept on the screen. Then, slowly, he smiled. "That's actually brilliant," the man said. "Do you know how many vendors could use something like this?" That man's name was Daniel Reeves, a venture capitalist. And that single moment, on a cold sidewalk with a flickering laptop, changed Eli's life forever. Daniel offered to help. He mentored Eli, introduced him to people who believed in his vision. And months later, Eli received his first small round of funding. He cried that night, not because of the money, but because for the first time in his life, someone saw him. He built a small team, people like him, runaways, dreamers, street kids with broken stories but unbreakable hope. They worked in a tiny borrowed office with cracked walls and plastic chairs. But inside that room, they built something powerful. And when StreetLink launched, it exploded. Thousands of vendors joined. Street sellers who had never touched a computer suddenly had customers from other cities. People who used to make a few dollars a day were now earning hundreds. Eli's dream, born in the shadows, was lighting up lives. Within 2 years, the company was valued in the millions. Eli became a millionaire, but he never changed. He didn't buy cars or mansions. He bought hope. He built Wi-Fi shelters for homeless kids. He created free online schools for anyone who wanted to learn, just like he once did. He became the mentor he never had. And every year, he'd return to that same dumpster behind the bakery, not to remember the hunger, but to remind himself how far he'd come. He once said in an interview, "I didn't chase money. I chased freedom, the kind that comes when you refuse to be defined by where you started." And maybe that's what makes his story so powerful. Because Eli didn't just build an app. He built a bridge from despair to destiny, from being invisible to being unstoppable. So, if you ever feel like you're too far gone, too broken, too late, remember this. You're not broken. You're being built. And sometimes the pain you're running from is the very fire that will forge your purpose. Now I want to ask you something. What's the dream you buried under fear or doubt? Drop it in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, that's where your story begins. And if you believe in stories that move souls and awaken hope, subscribe. Because your next spark of inspiration might be just one story away.